Hello and welcome to Moving Kentucky Forward. I'm Bruce Maples, publisher of Forward Kentucky. We've been interviewing all of the candidates on the Democratic side in this year's election, and today we're going to talk with Michael Bowman, who is running for state treasurer. Michael Bowman has run for this office once before, and he is the only candidate for treasurer that has significant financial background and experience. So let's hear what Michael Bowman has to say about his candidacy this year for treasurer. So we're here today with Michael Bowman, who is running for state treasurer on the Democratic ticket. Michael, welcome to Moving Kentucky Forward.
Thanks for having me.
I am excited to talk with you and also to learn a little bit more about this position. Now, you have run for office before, so tell us about your previous experience.
As you know, I ran for state treasurer 4 years ago. I was fortunate enough to become the Democratic nominee, and unfortunately did not get across the finish line that November. My experience on the campaign was incredible, being able to travel across Kentucky to meet people and communities from Pikeville to Paducah, everywhere in between, and really get to know what is important to the people of this Commonwealth, and worked hard to make a case for why I was the best person to be the state treasurer. I still contend I'm the best person to be state treasurer, which is why I took on this challenge again. After that election, Governor Beshear asked me to join his administration. So for the last 3 years, up until this year, I worked in the Education and Labor Cabinet, overseeing federal and state grants, as well as working on a variety of workforce development projects and programs across the state. So, my involvement in the community, my involvement in trying to do the best things for Kentuckians didn't end with my campaign. So, but I did want to put myself forward once again to run for this office because it speaks to my background, having worked in local and state government for years, as well as having professional training in finance as a bank officer for a large financial institution. I have the skill set that can be of use on day one. So here I
Well,
am.
I want to get to that. Let me lay down one more basic. Who is your opponent here?
My opponent is Mark Metcalf, who is a 24-year county attorney in Garrett County.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the office of treasurer. I know that I suspect that most people in the state, you speak to them about treasurer, and they think of the treasurer of their local Rotary Club who uses QuickBooks and writes the checks. And
Sure.
I suspect there's more than that at the state level for treasurer. So can you give us just like 30 seconds of what all the treasurer oversees?
Absolutely. First and foremost, the treasurer's job is one of accountability and transparency for your tax dollars. They're the individual that's responsible for accounting for those dollars as they come in and go out of the treasury. But beyond that, the treasurer sits on a variety of boards and commissions that really drives policy in certain areas. We're talking about the Teachers Retirement Pension Board. We're talking about the Kentucky Investment Commission, the Higher Education Authority, which oversees and manages college savings plans as well as the Key Scholarship. So, we're talking about a lot of a power that are vested in certain boards in which the treasurer, by virtue of the office, sits as either chair or vice chair in many ways. So
Hmm.
it provides an opportunity for us to drive the Commonwealth in a particular direction, ensuring that we are maximizing the returns that we're getting on our tax dollars, which is why I think it's important to have somebody that has financial experience in the office. My opponent doesn't. And so, and something I think a lot of people don't realize is that we haven't elected a treasurer in nearly 40 years that has any type of background or experience in finance. So, we're missing opportunities to have an individual that can, on day one, sitting on these various boards and commissions, have the knowledge and skill set to be able to make smart investment decisions, be able to understand the intricacies of the problems that we're
Mm-hmm.
facing when we're talking about our pension funds and how we're investing our dollars to make returns for Kentucky. Kentucky's not the wealthiest state in the union, unfortunately, and so every tax dollar that a taxpayer sends to Frankfort to fund the government, to fund projects and programs across the state, we need to make sure that we're maximizing the returns on those dollars. And the treasurer has a unique role in doing that.
Okay, so the treasurer sits on all these boards, and sometimes I didn't realize was chair or vice chair. That's a critical point. It seems to me that a better description of the role would be chief financial officer for the state.
And you are the chief elected financial officer for the state. There are roles and responsibilities that are shared with the finance cabinet, but at the end of the day, the treasurer is held accountable to the people of Kentucky.
Yeah. And your point about experience, this is another reason I wanted to speak with you. Somebody shared that with me recently to say, well, Michael Bowman's the first candidate in 40 years who has a background in finance. And that just sort of shocked me. I realize it's an elected position, but good grief, you'd want somebody who knows a little bit about investments and banking. Um,
Absolutely.
when I interviewed Colonel Pam Stevenson recently, we talked about the fact that I ran for office about 10 years ago, but mine was a local race. And I said to her, and I'm saying to you, I doubt unless you're going to pull a Lamar Alexander and walk across the state, I doubt you're doing much door knocking. So, how are you running a statewide campaign like this?
Well, a lot of it does require the involvement of volunteers and people that are willing to help you get your message out. So we've activated, as you pointed out. I have run for this office before, so there's a network of people that I was able to connect with 4 years ago that have stepped up in a large way this time. And I was, in fact, 4 years ago, one of the only candidates that actually did a significant amount of canvassing across the state,
Hmm.
putting the money where my mouth is and put my foot on the road to knock on these doors. So, which is something that we are doing again. Uh, Beyond that, though, we've, as a coordinated campaign with all of the Democratic nominees on the ballot this year, we have created a coordinated campaign that is the most robust campaign that we have ever seen in Kentucky's history.
Hmm.
As of now, we have knocked on over 350,000 doors collectively to reelect Governor Beshear and elect all of the Democratic candidates down the ballot. So we have a operation that's in place, is getting the work done on the road, getting out the message that not only do we need to reelect Governor Beshear, but send him help in Frankfort. I think that's something that we have seen as a problem over the last 4 years, that we have constitutional officers that aren't working in good faith with the governor. Excuse me. And that's something I think that people want to see. They want to see Andy succeed and are willing to give him the tools to do it. And part of that is electing people like Colonel Pam Stevenson as our Attorney General and Buddy Wheatley as our Secretary of State, and yes, me as your treasurer. So it's a message that's resonating. And as I've said, when we've over 350,000 doors, which is beating our pace for a similar program that we did 4 years ago by a vast margin, we're in good position to really make sure that the message gets out for what we want to do in leading the Commonwealth for the next 4 years.
So, I did a story recently on the site about the 5 down ballot candidates, and it seemed to me that if you simply get the word out about the qualifications of each of these candidates, the choice becomes very clear. And I'm concerned. I'm really glad to hear you talk about the door knocking, but I'm concerned about advertising and general name recognition. What are you? What is your campaign individually or the coordinated campaign together doing about advertising and name recognition across the state?
Certainly. Well, as part of the coordinated campaign, the conversations that we are having at the door with constituents includes everyone. The literature includes everyone. So there is a level of penetration that we're making, getting our names and out and in front of voters. But independently, I can only speak for my campaign. We have been hard at it, raising money to be able to do the work that we need to do to keep getting that message out. We actually did have a poll research recently done on our campaign specifically that shows when I do get that message out, I move the needle up above 50% among likely voters. So,
Mm-hmm.
you're very right in that it is clear that there is a contrast between the opposition and the Democratic candidates, and that when you compare apples to oranges, there are certainly differences there that makes it obvious which choice we should go with, and getting that message out is what our ultimate plan is through a variety of mediums, be it digital advertising through social media, as well as directed email text campaigns, as well as also getting on the air. Today's world revolves a lot around streaming services. So things like Hulu and Netflix that have
Mm-hmm.
those types of services where we can put advertisements on there. Those are methods that we are currently going to engage in to get that message out from a perspective of name recognition, ensuring people understand and know qualifications of me versus my opponent, and why it's would be best for them to select me to be their next treasurer.
So, beyond qualifications, one of the other things that I like to ask candidates about is plan. So, let's assume that you win the election and you start in January as our new treasurer. What are three things that you would like to do or see done if you were elected?
Certainly. As I said, the first and foremost job of the treasurer is accountability and transparency, making sure that we are building a system that we can provide a certain level of trust in our government, that there is clear, transparent information available in an intuitive way for people to be able to look and see what their government's doing. Credit where credit is due. There is a website that the current treasurer has established, but it doesn't go far enough. I think there needs to be
Hmm.
improvements in that to ensure that the information is there in a succinct and easily accessible way. Uh, Secondly, is to engage with the legislature and with local school districts across the Commonwealth to expand financial literacy. We have made it a requirement that you have to have a financial literacy course to be able to graduate high school, but we haven't established a common curriculum or a set of standards in which we can judge whether or not that is a successful program. So, ensuring that we are making it a uniform across Kentucky, where an individual, a school age kid is in high school getting this program as part of his education, is getting and receiving the same instruction and meeting the same goals as a kid in Pike County. So we have to establish a better way of doing the financial literacy piece so that our kids are prepared for adulthood, understanding the critical nature of being financially secure in themselves and to make smart financial decisions for themselves. And it needs to be beyond just high school. We need to treat it like we do math, science, and social studies, and that it's something we start teaching kids from an early age so that by the time they're in high school, they understand what credit means. They understand how to manage and balance a checkbook, things that adults need to know and understand through their lives. So that's number two. And number three is to work closely with the governor to ensure that we are being smart about our investments and our financial decisions and building an economy that works for Kentucky. As I've pointed out, I have experience in all of those fields that that could be of benefit and working and partnering with the governor rather than being an officer that's going to be opposed to him for political purposes. And that's, I think, going to be important for the next 4 years. We've seen what Governor Beshear has been able to accomplish despite the headwinds, the political headwinds that have been against him with a supermajority opposition legislature, and he still gets the job done. And that shows what we're capable of doing and building an economy that we've seen over the last 3 years with the historic investments that businesses have made in Kentucky, the historic investments that we've seen made in our infrastructure projects and programs across the state. So I think there is a unique opportunity here to really move Kentucky forward in a very positive way and be able to work together with the governor in ensuring that we are continuing that success and providing the skill sets that I can to make sure that we're being successful in that.
One of the words you used was transparency. And I agree with you that I'm thankful that we have the Kentucky's Checkbook website. That's a nice start. But it seems to me that there are a lot of other places where transparency could be increased. How much power or authority does the treasurer have in terms of increasing that transparency? I'm thinking specifically of our pension investments. I'm thinking of personal services contracts, of which there are hundreds.
Sure.
I'm thinking of other types of transparency. How much could you do as treasurer with those issues?
Well, all those things that you have expressed are, in fact, public records. So it would be a matter of ensuring that they are provided through a common portal that can be easily researched and looked at. So every dollar. That's the unique thing about the treasurer's office is every dollar that leaves the treasury, every dollar that's spent by state government at every level comes through my office and makes me the custodian of that record. So that gives me the unique opportunity to be able to put all those records into a common database that can be looked at and reviewed. The question is developing a way to do it in an intuitive, easily researchable way that makes it not cumbersome for a person who just walks in off the street to be able to look it up. So developing a better website, as it were. Now that we have things like AI technology that makes a lot of the background work easier when we're talking about how we deal with computers and searching in databases and pulling information together. There should be no reason why we couldn't leverage that technology into this to make it easier for the end user like you to be able to look that information up. But again, as treasurer, having access and being the custodian of a lot of these records makes it significantly easier to put that out.
I always conclude my interviews with two questions. So here's the first one. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that I haven't asked you?
Well, I would say that this we always hear people talk about how every election is the most important election of their lifetime, and and to a degree, that's accurate. Every election is. It gives us a unique opportunity to get out and change the course of our community, of our state, of our nation, rather than go through a much harsher, bloodier way of doing it as we had before the formation of democracies like ours. So getting people involved in voting, this is something that I think here in Kentucky we've recognized that voter apathy, people who just don't want to vote or show up to vote, is a problem, and that part of the work that we're trying to do is engage with those voters. That we are getting out in the communities that have far too often felt left out, left behind, and we're trying to engage them in a way that lets them know that regardless of those thoughts and feelings, the government, our state government, the leaders that we're trying to send to Frankfort are here to work for you, and work with you for your best interests, not try to dictate what your best interests are. So, and again, that's clear across all of our candidates, and I think that reiterating that point is a huge part of it.
Okay, my last question. Let's pretend that you are actually doing door knocking in my neighborhood, and I answer the door, and you're on my front porch, and I look at you and I say, "Why should I vote for you?" What's your answer?
Well, as we've already discussed, this election is about helping Governor Bashir be continuing his success and giving him the tools in Frankfurt that he needs. Beyond that, I have the qualifications that fit the office. Uh, I'll be the first treasurer elected in nearly 40 years that has any type of professional training or formal education in finance. I'm the only person that has the working knowledge of working in the executive branch as well as the local and with local and state government experience, and then I can do the job on day one. I think my what I'm proposing, what projects and programs would be focused on in my administration would be helpful to people across Kentucky, not just you. That we have a transparent and accountable government. That we are doing things to ensure that people know and understand how best to manage their financial lives, as well as increase our ability to improve our economy, adding layers to our economy to build on that and save us money and make us more successful, not just for our generation, but for the next generation.
Michael Bowman, financial background, government service background, the obvious choice for treasurer this year. Thank you for being with us on Moving Kentucky Forward.
Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate it.
That was Michael Bowman, who is running for state treasurer here in Kentucky this fall. I hope you will really pay attention to his qualifications and what he wants to do with the office. I think he is by far the best candidate for that role, and I hope you will get out and vote for him. We are interviewing all the candidates, so go to the website, forwardky.com, and take a look at all of the interviews that we've done, and we've got more coming. Thanks for watching or listening, and see you next week.